Good evening, Team SCCA. I'm Mike Cobb, your President and CEO, and I want to welcome each of you to the SCCA 2026 Hall of Fame Award Show. We're excited to be with you tonight, and we're honored to bring you this celebration featuring your Sports Car Club of America 2026 Hall of Fame inductees, along with the Member of Excellence and the Woolf Barnato Award winners. Tonight, we're all going to level up. We're going to recognize and celebrate some of our finest. These members have made incredible contributions to the club, to the broader world of motorsports, and have over 150 years of combined SCCA leadership. So round up your friends and family, get your motor running, let's get to grid, and let's get this race started. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the SCCA 2026 Hall of Fame Award Show. Let's roll!
There are very few activities in the Sports Car Club of America that George Bovis was not involved with. George began his SCCA journey in the Chicago area during the 1960s, setting the hook as a flagger, before climbing behind the wheel in F production and B sedan. A short time later, he moved from participation to actively making the club stronger. His experience in flagging and communications led him to create Chicago Region's Flagging and Communications Manual, standardizing responses and protocols, and by 1977, he was leading Chicago Region as its regional executive. In the 1980s, George carried his leadership qualities to the national level, represented Area 5 in the Board of Directors, with a focus on growing membership and a period of expansion. By the end of the decade, he was the director of the SCCA Foundation. In the 1990s, George was actively helping regions navigate a changing motorsports landscape. He helped regions expand their owned racetracks, specifically on the West Coast with Buttonwillow and Thunder Hill. He served 6 more years in the Board of Directors, including as chair, while helping his son Chris, an eventual national champion, get started behind the wheel. During that time, he helped modernize road racing classes in the new century. Along the way, George was a Worker of the Year, SCCA Central Division Hall of Famer, and Chicago Region Founders Award winner, and served as a Road America board member. George was a 55-year SCCA member when he passed away in 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome George Bovis to the SCCA Hall of Fame.
On behalf of George Bovis, we are joining to thank the Hall of Fame Committee for his induction to the SCCA Hall of Fame. I'm George's son, Chris.
And I'm Beth, George's daughter. We were both fortunate to be raised in SCCA, participating and volunteering alongside our parents and close friends. Both of our parents had a deep passion for sports car racing, but particularly SCCA and its mission of making the sport as accessible as possible. For nearly 6 decades, George's contributions would evolve along with his role in the organization. These various phases would share common themes of friendship, business discipline, strategic vision, and a dedication to improving the experience of SCCA participation and broadening its appeal.
George Bovis joined Chicago Region in 1964, sponsored by his college fraternity brothers, who remain close friends to this day. He was quickly joined by Elizabeth McClurg, who had become better known as Betty Bovis, our mother, and they were instantly inseparable at home and at the track. Starting as corner workers, they soon found more ways to contribute. George raced briefly in F production and B sedan, although he would never describe himself as a racer. He made a humorous splash on the big screen, handing Paul Newman water during his pit stop in the opening scene of Winning. In reality, he kept spilling it on Paul, forcing him to redo his makeup and shoot it again and again and again. In the 1970s, George became involved in the business and strategy of SCCA. He knew that SCCA would face more competition in the marketplace, and he thought vertically integrating into track ownership would be a strategic advantage. He worked hard with Chicago Region to build a region-owned racetrack, something which would come to fruition later in his SCCA career and in a different part of the country. Throughout this period, George would become Chicago Region RE, professionalizing his processes and operations. He would serve as race chairman, flag marshal, corner captain, chief of F&C, and more.
In 1986, George won the Area 5 election to the SCCA National Board of Directors by 8 votes, 4 of which came from his family, and embraced the nickname Landslide Bovis. He commissioned a study to identify strategies to grow and retain membership, and the initial recommendations were implemented. At the time, membership was approximately 50,000, and by George's final year on the board in 2000, membership had risen by 67% to 75,000. He would become vice chairman by 1988, worker of the year in 1989, and the director of the SCCA Foundation. In the early 90s, he returned to his original strategic vision. Not only did he serve on the National Budget and Finance Committee, but he was chair of the National Racetrack Committee. At this time, the West Coast racetracks were a concern. There were not many to start with. Residential expansion, emerging regulations, and increasing property values were threats to those existing tracks. Through the Racetrack Committee, he created a financing program for SCCA and its regions that enabled Buttonwillow and Thunder Hill to be built.
He would join the National Board again from 94 to 2000, serving as chairman from 97 to 2000. It's this period where he most directly shaped SCCA and had his largest impact on sports car racing. George sensed an opportunity to reunite SCCA and IMSA. He developed a strategy and directly negotiated with IMSA's owner, Andy Evans. The result was the revival of the US RRC and the first Daytona 24 Hours run under SCCA's management. Perhaps his biggest accomplishment of this period was the modernization of club racing, specifically showroom stock. The challenge was that showroom stock cars were only legal for a few years, forcing racers to constantly buy new cars and negatively impacting the value of anything but the most current car. There were also no means to adjust the car's performance, resulting in a new dominant car every year. George's strategy was to extend the longevity of race cars through modifications that could be adjusted to balance performance and also make them sound a little bit more like real race cars too. From this strategy, touring was born and phased in over a series of years. In this period, Rallycross was created in response to the increasing risk management issues of the rally program, and the booming Formula Mazda fields became a national class.
By 2000, George had sold his business, retired, and served his last year on the SCCA Board of Directors. However, his commitment to the club would remain unchanged. In 2002, he joined the Road America Board of Directors, the place where he had fallen in love with sports car racing and forged lifelong friendships and raised his family. George remained a strong advocate for SCCA and played a role in the runoffs moving to Road America in 2009 and beyond. These accomplishments are impressive, but to be honest, we didn't know about most of them. Dad would rarely, if ever, speak about what he did and never sought credit. While researching for the Hall of Fame nomination process is how we learned much about his contributions to SCCA. But what we did see and feel were the things that you don't find in a file box. His love for the people and for the sport. And we think these are the things that most people remember too.
For 5 decades, our motorhome was parked prominently in Road America's official park, and it would begin buzzing around 4:30. By 5:15, it was standing room only. By 5:30, the line spilled out the door, and with dozens of people laughing and telling the stories of their day. Everyone was welcome. By 6 o'clock, Dad would leave for the worker party, promising to be back in 30 minutes, which we all knew was not true. Mom would still be entertaining the ever-growing group at the motorhome. One of us would be dispatched for the first time around 7 o'clock to retrieve Dad for dinner, but we would have to do this 2 or 3 more times before actually achieving success. Dinner would be a minimum of 10 people and often over 20 or more laughing and telling stories well into the night. We also saw Dad come home from work and start his evening SCCA job. As soon as we were done with dinner, he would be on the phone. And it was a real phone, tan, plastic, and metal with a cord that attached it to the kitchen wall. Our house and our lives were filled with our great friends from SCCA. As the friendships grew, evolved into dinner with those friends, then holidays, and eventually traveling the world together.
It's for these reasons that we cannot think of a more appropriate and meaningful way to remember George Bovis than his inclusion in the SCCA Hall of Fame. He was dedicated to the mission of the club and its members, and he was humbly served that mission for nearly 60 years. Thank you so much for inducting Dad into the Hall of Fame and preserving his contributions to SCCA.
John Doonan is a second-generation SCCA member whose impact is felt throughout the world of motorsports. Proud son of Illinois, John grew up at the racetrack, watching his father race, and earned his own competition license as a road racer. The truth is, it's his off-track activities that would make him a titan of the sport. His first break came as Mazda's Midwest advertising manager in 2003, where he grew to become the director of Mazda Motorsports just 8 years later. The fact that, quote, more Mazdas are raced on any given weekend than any other brand is a testament to his work with grassroots racers from a manufacturer's perspective. His efforts increased contingency payouts for SCCA racers, offsetting costs for racers not just on the podium, but throughout the fields. He and his team increased technical support, parts development, and parts sales to Mazda racers. Throughout his leadership, Mazda has also assisted in launching many pro racing careers via the Mazda shootouts that annually provide hundreds of thousands of dollars in factory support to up-and-coming racers, many of whom earn their way to the shootout through the SCCA. His efforts at Mazda and his understanding of the motorsports landscape made him a natural choice to take over a recently reunited IMSA. While leading the professional sports car racing landscape during its golden age, John also solidified the relationship between IMSA and the SCCA. That effort included track workers, including jointly developing worker training modules and cross-promoting opportunities for enthusiasts to grow as both a fan and a participant. Even now, John can occasionally be found wearing whites, standing on a corner for a handful of sessions at the Chicago Region June Sprints or the SCCA runoffs. Famously known as the Kid in the Sand at Road America, please welcome John Doonan to the SCCA Hall of Fame.
Thank you so much, Marshall, for that moving and emotional introduction. I am deeply honored by this recognition into the SCCA Hall of Fame, to be part of the 2026 class, and all those who have come before me is very moving. Also, congratulations to Don, to Jerry, to George, and to Frank, to be inducted with you all, gentlemen that I've known, become friends with, and admired over the years, is also deeply moving. As I shared with Mike Cobb when he let me know that I was being inducted into the SCCA Hall of Fame during this fall's SCCA National Championship runoffs, I was so emotionally moved and explained to him that it's been such an incredibly long but very special journey to get to this point. Standing before you today is the grown-up version of the 9-year-old little boy that really was finally understanding the sport, but the little boy that was in his stroller in Turn 5 at Road America at the 1970 Chicago Region June Sprints at the tender age of 6 weeks old. The 9-year-old boy that was given the chance by so many people along the way to learn our sport. Folks like Al and Liz Lynch, who taught me about flagging and how to start a race and how to operate a good race event. Dean Johnson and Linda Chapman, who gave a 9-year-old boy the chance to work in timing and scoring and do lap charts. The individuals, my dad as a chief steward, who gave me the opportunity to work grid, which I think is completely against the regulations these days to have a 12-year-old working the grid, but it was a different day. And then ultimately the ability to work corners, do tech, all of those things have gotten me to this point, and all of those people have given me this opportunity. But ultimately, there's no chance that I have a passion for the auto industry and motorsport without my grandfather, also named John Doonan, and my dad, another generation of John Doonan. My grandfather raced circle track midgets, Curtis Craft, Offenhauser-powered midgets on the East Coast in the 40s and 50s, after also enjoying the speed of being a pilot in the U.S. Navy. His passion for the sport, his years and years of attending the Indianapolis 500, the Knoxville Nationals, really instilled the spirit of the sport, the passion for the sport in my dad. Of course, then, my dad, after his stint in the U.S. Navy, had the motorsports passion as well, ending up in Chicago, discovering the Midwestern Council of Sports Car Clubs in the early 70s, and competing in what would have been a home-built Volkswagen-powered sports racer, a Volkswagen Beetle road racer, a Porsche 914, and ultimately raced some Mazdas with a bunch of his motorsports companions. Through Midwestern Council of Sports Car Clubs, North Suburban Sports Car Club, ultimately SCCA and IMSA, I grew up at the racetrack. Places like Road America, of course, places like Black Hawk Farms, where I sat on top of domed garbage cans Maybe those were the first pit stands in all of motorsports, with my clipboard, with my stopwatch, with my ear protectors, dreaming of the day that I could be in the action. I was on the other side of the fence or on the other side of the rope, but all I wanted to do was be part of the action. As I grew up in the sport, I loved watching drivers, and there's no doubt that A.J. Foyt's, Johnny Rutherford's, Mario Andretti's, Bobby Rahal's, Richard Petty's, Al Holbert's, Lynn St. James, and Rob Dyson's were heroes of mine. But in the end, it was a group of grassroots club racers that I would call my superheroes. Guys like Rick Dittman, who I've known for 50 years, who's now and continues to be an incredibly dear friend. 10-time SCCA national champion Steve Sargis, who I used to hand tools to when I was 5 and 6 years old. Guys like Scott Rubenzer of Formula V and Formula Car fame. A guy named Steve Schwitter's 1980 G Production national champion. And ultimately, my very close friend, Rob Warkocki, who's a 2-time national champion in his own right. Each of these drivers built their own race cars, maintained their own race cars, started out at the very lowest levels of grassroots racing, and ultimately made it to the runoffs, the place that I thought all superheroes were supposed to go. I really came into my own, I would say, as a young boy at the racetrack in the late 70s. Ironically, about that same exact time, Mazda started bringing the RX-7 sports car to the United States market. Of course, they started selling cars here in 1970, but it was that ultimate sports car that people had dreamed of, the RX-7, that started in the market. They also simultaneously started racing that car, certainly at the grassroots levels in showroom stock, but in IMSA GTU. And the car made its debut with a victory at the 1979 Rolex 24 at Daytona. Simultaneously, my dad was racing, continued to race in Midwestern Council, and a gentleman named Ray Novotny, who had a Mazda dealership in Racine, Wisconsin, brought the first RX-7s to the racetrack. I'm pretty sure they were on the first truckload of cars that showed up at the dealership. They became showroom stock racers, but it was visits to the dealership with my dad to buy our own Mazdas that gave me the passion for that brand. I fell in love with the Mazda brand. I followed Mazda throughout its showroom stock days, its early professional racing days, and ultimately through all of its time in IMSA. Dozens of race wins and many IMSA GTU championships later, all I talked about was wanting to have the opportunity to go to work for Mazda, specifically because of the road cars and the passion of that brand, but because of their involvement in motorsport. And clearly their motorsport was foundational around IMSA. A gentleman named Damon Barnett established the Mazda Motorsports program. Damon's focus was to give grassroots racers, and of course professional racers, the kind of support that they needed from a parts standpoint, from a financial standpoint, with race win contingency, to get their programs off the ground. Ultimately, the foundation of what Damon Barnett did for Mazda Motorsports was to create a family. Big tents at the SCCA runoffs where all the competitors had their cars, working on them together, sharing parts, sharing tools, and ultimately sharing the same passion for the Mazda brand, but also for the sport. My Mazda dream ultimately came true by meeting some very special people at the right time. Gentlemen like Brian Sim, Weldon Muncie, and ultimately one of my best friends on the planet, Robert Davis, gave me the opportunity to share with them my boyhood passion that started in 1979 to go to work for their brand. My 19 years at Mazda, some of the best times in my career. Ultimately, it became the first boyhood dream that I was able to realize. Thanks to Robert and the team in the Midwest region taking a chance on a young boy that had never been in the auto industry and gave me a chance to be part of the marketing team. But the ultimate goal, always in the back of my mind, was Mazda Motorsports. Throughout my time at Mazda, the theme was, it was a bunch of racers running a car company. And while I was the face of Mazda Motorsports for quite some time, there was a group of individuals that really established the program, maintained the program, and did exactly what Damon Barnett had in mind, and that was to support grassroots racers. Robert Davis, Steve Sanders, Jeremy Barnes, Jim Jordan, so many individuals created these programs for racers. Steve Sanders ran an absolutely incredible customer parts program through the competition parts office out in California. Scott, James, Dan, David, so many of the young guys that were there all day just taking parts orders and supporting SCCA and other grassroots racers. We built a program that was industry leading and to this day continues to be the strongest grassroots program in all of racing. Parts support, parts almost to the day on your front step for racers around the country. 20,000 racers strong. As the competition parts program at the grassroots level continued to grow, we were able to expand into professional racing again. In 2005, thanks to a lot of work by a lot of people, we were able to go back to IMSA, the American Le Mans Series. Simultaneously, Grand Am was running, and thanks to the reestablishment of the rotary in mass volume road cars, the RX-8, we went back through Speed Source to Grand Am Cup, ultimately became the Coney Challenge, the Continental Tire Challenge. But through those programs, we were able to expand, continue to sell cars and parts, and grow into various professional and semi-professional series. SCCA World Challenge at the time, the Mazda Protege, the Mazda 6. These cars were raced on the weekends, but there were marketing plans put behind them to help tie into the retail side of the business as well as to the road cars. Ultimately, sitting at Robert Davis's table one night, we sketched out on a napkin the idea of the Mazda Road to Indy and the Mazda Road to 24. Skip Barber was looking for engines for their formula cars and for road cars in their driving and racing school programs. The Formula Atlantic Championship needed a new power plant, and lo and behold, the Mazda fit in the back of the Swift 016 chassis, just like the previous manufacturer. Star Mazda was a really incredible program using the RX-8 engine, the rotary. We built this program to ultimately do what all of us had seen as racers. The sport costs money, and we wanted to provide a scholarship program to young drivers to see them go from karting all the way up to IndyCar, and the same on the sports car side, from karting through Spec Miata, MX-5 Cup, and all the way up to top-level sports car racing in IMSA. The program worked, and to this day, you can look at the grid in the IndyCar Series and certainly in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship and see young drivers that started out in the Mazda program learning how to drive, but learning how to be an engineer on a car, learning how to be a good PR individual, a business individual, and learning how to be the complete package of being a race car driver, a successful race car driver. And I know that Robert and Steve and Jeremy and Jim and all of us that worked on the program together, Kyle Kimball, Jim Bowie, so many people touched that program, too many to list. But we're so proud of what we accomplished in the time that we had together, as I said, a bunch of racers running a car company. Ultimately, thanks to major support from corporate partners and ultimately the board, I was given opportunities by Jim O'Sullivan, by Masahiro Moro, by our late friend Jay Amistoy, to become the director of motorsports for Mazda. At that time, we wanted to take the next level and compete at the very highest part of IMSA and the highest part of sports car racing globally with the DPI program. The Mazda RT24P was launched at the Los Angeles Auto Show in 2016 for a 2017 series launch. It took some time. We battled a lot. and thanks to Mazda's philosophy of never stop challenging, we finally got the car to winning ways. In the 2019 season, I realized a dream of winning at the highest level with the Mazda RT24P. Previously, we had worked with Dyson Racing, had many successes there, but for me, 2019 was the year. We won 3 races in a row, the Salem 6-hour at Watkins Glen. We won at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. And then ultimately, we won at my home track, Road America. 3 races in a row, but in the back of my mind, I knew that there was a new chapter that was coming. And I got the opportunity, thanks to Jim France and Ed Bennett, to become the president of IMSA. Check off the box for second boyhood dream. I had been enamored with IMSA from the first trip to Road America in 1979, when David Hobbs and Derek Bell won in the BMW. And now I was going to get the chance to lead the organization for years to come. Thank you so much to Jim and Ed for this opportunity that I've had. When the first days of my work at IMSA in Daytona Beach, I mentioned to Jim France and Ed Bennett that we needed a partnership with SCCA. We needed a training program to make sure that the marshals and the race officials that we need to operate our events had a full pipeline of up-and-coming talent. So in support of Mike Cobb, Eric Prill, and all of SCCA's initiatives, we became partners to train and educate marshals, race officials, and the folks that make the events happen behind the scenes. And to this day, we continue to provide an IMSA certification for workers around the country, and this continues to grow and be a critical part of the sport. While today is a special day for me, there's no chance that I get here without the incredible support of my immediate family. My wife, Kristen, has been the most supportive spouse you can imagine when it comes to growing in the sport. My 3 children have been big fans and cheering me on the whole way. This sport is tough. This sport is a lifestyle. And while we went racing as a family with my mom, Donna, and my sister, Jenny, my career in the sport have been with the support of Kristen and the kids. Because the sport is so tough and because the lifestyle is so tough, it's hard on family life. And throughout that time, I didn't always make the best choices. I didn't always prioritize my family. I've learned a lot over the years, and much like an endurance race, when there's major highs and also can be some major lows, I realize now that this sport has been very important to me, but as I continue my career, I don't want the sport to define me. I want my family life, my relationship with the good Lord, my relationship with my wife and my kids to be the #1 priority. Once again, from the bottom of my heart, I am so grateful for this honor and to be inducted alongside so many legends of our sport into the SCCA Sports Car Club of America Hall of Fame. Thank you so very much.
Don Knowles has lived 2 SCCA lives, both of which are worthy of induction into the club's Hall of Fame. Don is recognized by road racers as one of the most successful in SCCA history. Originally an autocrosser, Don earned his competition license in 1972 and won his first of 6 championships just 6 years later in 1978. His most recent runoffs win came in 2012, spanning 34 years between his first and last titles. In between, there was much more in club and pro racing. He scored wins in the Rabbit Bilstein Cup, SCCA Endurance Series, World Challenge, Renault Cup, IMSA GT Series, and Firestone Firehawk Championship, where he was the 1989 Driver of the Year. He was the 2006 Northeast Division Driver of the Year and the 2009 North Carolina Region Driver of the Year. He has competed successfully in more than 400 road races in 5 countries. and in his spare time, he also won ice races in Duluth, Minnesota, and Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada. Don also contributed to the SCCA off the track. A natural storyteller, Don wrote for a number of motorsport publications throughout the years. Don was a contributing editor to the SCCA Sports Car magazine for more than a decade, winning a Best Article Award along the way. He wrote locally for both North Carolina Region's Bulletin and Washington, D.C. Region's The Straight Pipe. His byline appeared in Road and Track and other magazines. Don was a lead instructor for Washington, D.C. Region's driver schools and was on the original Showroom Stock Advisory Committee as a liaison to the competition board. As a lead for the Mark Donahue Award Selection Committee and the SCCA President's Cup for years, along with his duties on the SCCA Hall of Fame nominating and Hall of Fame steering committees. And if none of that was enough, he was also secretary of the Road Racing Drivers Club for more than a decade. His impact on the SCCA came on and off the track. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Don Knowles to the SCCA Hall of Fame.
I'd like to thank the SCCA for inviting me into the SCCA Hall of Fame. It's quite an honor. It means a lot to me. I appreciate it. Let me start by thanking my family, my wife Becky, my daughter Sarah, my son Jamie. I started racing in 1972 and raced up through 2018 when my wife was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And that's a long time. I really enjoyed it. It's one of the highlights of my life. I had a very traditional start in SCCA. I didn't know anything about it. I was interested in racing. I'd always been interested in driving. We grew up on a dead-end dirt road, drove my daddy's pickup truck up and down that road really for years. I drove a school bus in high school. I drove a ready-mix concrete truck in the summers to make money. And when I got interested in cars, I decided I needed to know something about it. So I started volunteering as a corner worker at VIR. I corner worked at the runoffs at Road Atlanta in the late 60s, early 70s. Ended up autocrossing. We had a 1969 Volkswagen Beetle, and I happened to drive past a shopping center in Durham, North Carolina one Sunday, and they were out there wiggling in and out of traffic cones against a stopwatch, and it cost $3, and I quickly learned how bad I was at it. I had no idea why this car wasn't turning. When I would turn the steering wheel, my foot was on the floor. It seemed like the car ought to turn, but it didn't. I also want to thank all the volunteers that I've worked with over the years, people at the registrars, pit, grid, tech, Victory Circle. I mean, everybody, timing and scoring, everybody was wonderful to me year in and year out. I even got to know some of the stewards on a first name basis. That's not always a good thing. There were a bunch of those old-timey stewards, guys like Henrik Zamota and Dave Tallickson and Charlie Earwood. They didn't hesitate to tell me what I shouldn't be doing and what was okay to do, and neither did Sue Rothell. I did own a race car for a few years when I first started, but I sort of had a non-traditional path. I was able to thanks to SCCA, I was able to buy a car that I could drive on the street and drive it on the racetrack. The Showroom Stock class was sort of my entry point into racing. And after a few years, the SCCA came up with an endurance series for Showroom Stock type cars. And I was able to work with Jim Cook and Tommy Morrison to drive their Corvettes on that team. And for a decade, we had good cars. We won a bunch of races. It was really quite a nice thing. Tommy's been inducted into the National Corvette Hall of Fame. And after a few years, I decided to move over to IMSA, and I raced there for 10 or 15 or 20 years. But in 2004, I came back to really my roots, SCCA club racing. And I was able to extend a friendship I had developed with Joe Aquilani and his group in the IMSA series, and came right back into the club racing series and was driving with Joe all these years. Joe's the kind of team owner that you want, and he would come over to me sitting on the grid at the runoffs, and he would slap the hood of the car, roof of the car, and he would say, "Donnie Knowles, you got the checkbook, buddy. You just go out there and do whatever it is you need to do to win." That's the kind of team owner that you want. Not only that, he had the best cars, he had the best crew, he had the best drivers, including John Heinrichsey and Andrew Aquilante and myself, and Marshall Mast and Kurt Resitano. I think there's something like 45 national championships amongst that group. You can't really ask for a better group to race with. Everybody was focused on one thing, and that was winning. And they were pretty smart about how to do it. That friendship evolved into one with Drew Spoto and his wife Andrea, and we won a few championships with them. I have to say that all I ever really wanted to do was to drive, and then after I won a few times, I wanted to win a few more. And then after I won a few more, I wanted to share. I wanted to teach at driver schools. I wanted to write columns for the magazine Sports Car. I wanted to serve time on the DC Region Board of Directors. It's really all I wanted to do. And I have to say my life has sort of exceeded my expectations, especially in regards to racing. Final thanks I'd like to give is thanks to people like you for volunteering in the club. It made it possible for people like me to do what I did. Without you, I wouldn't have been receiving this honor, and I really appreciate it over the years. So it's sort of come to this, hasn't it? I want to thank all of you again. Hope you have a nice 2026, and thanks once more for the honor. Appreciate it.
Frank Schultheis began his SCCA journey as a member of the SCCA's San Francisco region in 1957 and quickly changed the club for the better. Originally a driver with his Triumph TR3, Frank soon became interested in pre- and post-race inspection, became chief scrutineer in the region, but it wasn't long before he was known throughout the country. He created his own tech form, exceeding the minimum requirements set by the national office in an effort to ensure fairness across the grid. Working with John Tamanis, who was inducted into the SCCA Hall of Fame in 2009, he introduced scatter shields, vehicle logbooks, fire systems, window nets, and kill systems to club racing cars. Frank and his San Francisco region crew took their show on the road, working the runoffs and professional SCCA races with Trans Am, Can-Am, and Formula 5000. He literally wrote the book on scrutineering small formula cars, including the Formula V Scrutineer's Handbook and the Formula Ford Scrutineer's Handbook. Both were used nationally as a guidepost for legal race cars. Outside of his work in the San Francisco region, Frank served as the technical administrator of the SCCA Pickup Truck Series and the Pro Formula Ford Series on the West Coast. Furthermore, he was active with the tech teams at CART IndyCar and Indy Lights. Sadly, Frank passed away in 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Frank Schultheis to the SCCA Hall of Fame.
Hi, this is Kim Schultheis, and this is my Hall of Fame video from my dad, Frank. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody who helped get him into the Hall of Fame. It's greatly appreciated. I thank everybody from the bottom of my heart. With everything my dad did in racing, this video would be a feature film, but I'm going to break it down into categories. He contributed his technical expertise from everything from Formula 5000 to Can-Am, from Formula Atlantics to Formula One, IndyCar, and a Trans Am. He can be credited for the safety innovations that are used today. The bladders and fuel cells, full roll cages in window nets and sedans, minimum roll bar height, hind joint, captive washers and hind joints on all Formula cars and sports racers, which are now prototypes. He also scatter shields and bulkheads. A third of the technical contributions can be found in the rule book to this day. He also mandated roll bar stamps, driver information on the back of the helmets, and also throughout his career, He mentored most people in the SCCA and San Francisco region especially. He had a great way of being able to explain things so everybody understood how he wanted it done. He was very eloquent in his speaking and used such great words to be able to understand exactly what was going on. He passed that love on to me. And as you know, my dad being who he is, when I started racing in the late 70s, you know, my cars were prepped to his exacting standards. I missed the racing that we did. He was really great at being able to tell me exactly what needed to be done with my cars. And he was also very instrumental in helping me become the driver I was until 1989, when I had to retire from competitive racing and strictly go to autocrossing. He was there for me. I was in the hospital and he came in every day and told me, hey, you're going to make it. And kind of like, and I appreciate that. In 1969, after on and off racing, he retired from racing altogether after having a near fatal accident at Katati in 1969. Before then, he also drove for Bob Layton in a 4-hour enduro in a Volvo P1800. He drove a Healy 3000 for Carlos Steeman in 1966. He also entered 2 4-hour enduros with John Fisk in his MGA. He also ran a Triumph TR3 himself, 2 of them, one neck production, one knee production. He also ran an MGTF. In his personal life, he started 2 successful automotive repair shops, one in California and one here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Yeah. And we had multiple race fans and people that we knew streamed through the shop throughout the years. Yeah. I always found it as a child, I found it really cool. My dad knew who he did. One time coming home from 5th grade, there was Dan Gurney in our front room talking to my dad. And another time I remember, Carol Shelby joined us at a race down in Albuquerque, a race at Santa Barbara. He joined us for dinner. You know, and it's like, who didn't my dad know? You know, I met the cream of the crop when it comes to race car drivers. And it was really nice being able to rub shoulders with everybody. The latter years of his life, he retired from racing SCCA after 40 years to dedicate the rest of his life to making a very nice house out in the country. He bought horses, which I never thought he would do. He didn't strike me as a horseman. After that, he retired. He moved from Santa Fe to Texas, Glendale, Texas. He had a nice spread out there, and he was always into making things easier for him and the property. In the latter years of his life, in 2020, as you know, my mom Shirley died, and it was really tough for him. He had lost both of his legs at that time. He had people that helped him at the church that he belonged to. And in the last 5 months of his life, we really started talking. I talked to him almost every day. We bench raced, and he also told me some things that I really didn't know. You know, and some were shocked, and some were par for course. And then it wasn't until just last year, 16th of January 2024, a true legend of racing died. And that was a really tough time for me. Now, I miss the stories, I miss hearing his voice, and I miss the bench racing that we did. Thank you, Dad. You gave me a love and a passion for a sport that I can't get enough of.
Jerry Winarka has been an SCCA leader on and off the track for more than 50 years. With a full competition license for more than 40 years, Jerry has raced more than 20 different tracks across the country, held 3 track records, establishing himself as a skilled racer on his way to earning regional and divisional titles. But his largest impact came in his activity off the track as a respected steward, executive steward, director, and chair of the board in 2 SCCA organizations. As a nationally licensed steward, Jerry continues to serve trackside throughout the country. He's been a runoffs chief steward, an assistant chief steward, super tour chief steward, regional chief steward, chairman of the SOM, operating steward, safety steward, and tech steward. He's served as executive steward for the Southwest Division and deputy executive steward for Area 2 in the Northeast Division. The regional level, been a board member and regional executive in the Lone Star region, a Washington, D.C. region board member, and a steward liaison to the D.C. Board's Club Racing Committee. The national level, Jerry has served multiple terms as an Area 2 director on the National Board of Directors, where he was a strong and steady leader as chair of the board. He's also served as the chair of the board for the SCCA Enterprises, leading that program through a period of growth. A consummate professional and enthusiastic member, Jerry's introduced many to the Stewards program, and as a mentor and friend, has helped them grow in that role. He was previously honored as the 2015 Woolf Barnato Award winner, and his resume has only grown since then. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jerry Winarka to the SCCA Hall of Fame.
Hello, this is Sarah Winarka. I'm Jerry Winarka's oldest daughter, and I'm honored, blessed, and happy to accept this award on his behalf. Thank you for inducting him into the SCCA Hall of Fame. The SCCA family was extremely important to my dad, and it really shaped much of what I became because of the discipline, the training, the mentorship, the teaching, and the fun. Of course, like many of you, I grew up with an engine block hanging from the ceiling of my garage. I learned every tool has its place, and he'll know if that tool didn't get back to the right place. We spent many years growing up at Summit Point, at Brainerd, at the runoffs, at the Poconos, all over in our Mini Winnie with the race car in tow. And it was a family everywhere we went, and that family has stayed with my dad to this day. And so thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for this honor. Thank you for recognizing his service. Thank you for recognizing that he truly, truly cared about the SCCA mission, the SCCA business, the cars, the drivers, and making sure there is a place for drivers in the future. So I would like to cheer my dad, Colonel Winarka, Dr. Winarka, Steward Winarka, and my dad, Jerry Winarka. Congratulations to him. Thank you for recognizing his commitment. Thank you for honoring what he loves, because he loves everything about SCCA, and this is truly an honor to him and our family. Cheers and thank you.
Welcome, Team SCCA. It's my honor tonight to introduce you to the SCCA 2026 Member of Excellence Award winner. The Member of Excellence Award, selected by the SCCA Board of Directors, is presented to the volunteer who shows the greatest commitment to SCCA motorsports activities. The recipient can be involved in any SCCA program as a driver, participant, or volunteer, and should personify the SCCA spirit by being one who gives of his or her time and effort to organize or volunteer in any role necessary to support SCCA motorsports. From inception, the Member of Excellence Award was really intended to recognize the unsung heroes of the SCCA, someone who works diligently behind the scenes, someone who works oftentimes without any significant recognition. I think this year's winner epitomizes this theme. This winner joined the SCCA in the late 2000s, calls Tennessee Valley Region home, has been a driving force in rallycross at the local and national level for many years. Over the last several years, this individual really leveled up their commitment to excellence and service to the SCCA rallycross community. In fact, he was instrumental in helping TVR host the Rallycross National Championship in 2024. There, he developed a national level site, bought and fixed up a grader, built his own sheep's foot, served as course designer, and invested significant time, money, and resources to make the event a huge success. His reward? This event is the first event in SCCA history to achieve a 100% likely to recommend rating. Based on this success, he executed the same playbook in 25, taking on all the same duties and even creating the trophies. Simply said, if it's tied to SCCA Rallycross and it's good, you'll find his name all over it. This year's winner cast a distinguished cast of leaders like Matt Wahovic, Earl Hurlbut, Lee Hill, George Laws, Rich Beretta, Lori Vitagliano, Sidney Davis, Yeagle, Paula Hawthorne, and many other deserving SCCA stalwarts as former Member of Excellence recipients. Ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, I'd like to introduce you to this year's SCCA Member of Excellence Award winner, Mr. Leon Drake from the Tennessee Valley region. Congratulations, Leon.
I'm Leon Drake, member of the Tennessee Valley Region SCCA. This award hit me out of the blue. I am overwhelmed and honored. I certainly didn't expect this. I always thought it was for people way further up the ladder than I. Don't know how I would manage my motorsports addiction if it weren't for the SCCA. They've made my racing affordable, which I think is number one on all of our lists, and fun, because racing, and also safe, so that you get to keep coming back and doing this on and on. I've been a car guy ever since I was 14. Anything with an engine, I just love it. I only wish I had found out about the SCCA sooner. It wasn't until my 40s, so if I had any regrets, that would be it. I wish I had started sooner. But thank you, SCCA. I started out in solo, like most of us, and then I dabbled in time trials with my Celica, and that exposed me to our road racing program in our region, which got me working in timing and scoring, which, my opinion, best gig in the house. And then I got exposed to rallycross. And when that happened, man, that took my fun meter all the way to 11. And I have never had so much fun, and I'm still loving it. I'm fortunate to have such a good group of people at Tennessee Valley Region. I remember Alan McCrispin, who tried to break all my bad habits when I started in solo. Thank you. Charles Wright exposed me to rallycross and mentored me on how to build courses and so on. And now I've got Tom and Alicia Harrington, Steve and Megan Sequeira, and a host of other TVR members that help us make our events run so smooth and so well. I'm constantly encouraged by the continuing expansion and growth in our programs, and it's just getting better all the time. So our region, it's motivated to do more and more. I can see doing more road race and time trials in this coming year. I'm planning to start working in scrutineering, which I started late last year. So I'm looking forward to the 2026 season. I've found that the racing people are the best people, the brightest, the most fun to be around, and just great people. So when I go every year to nationals, I love it, get to socialize with people that I don't get to see but maybe once a year. And it's great fun every time. If my car breaks, which it has, and I have to retire, I don't just pack up and leave right away. I hang around to help out because I like you people. And on top of that, if I can help someone that's a first-timer get on a podium that's never been there before, I'll tell you, that smile, that's worth it. That is priceless. And you've also gained somebody that's probably going to help out in your region, in your program, and be a long-term helper. So we got to do it where we can. I know that we're weird people. Folks look at us and think we're strange. Our lifestyles are different. Our garages look different. And our neighbors look at us. I think some of them are envious. We need to evangelize all we can, because I know that a lot of them would love to be racing. They just think it's unaffordable or unobtainable. But we can change that. In closing, I'd like to once again say My biggest thank you to the SCCA. Words fail me. I've been doing this now for a number of years, and God willing, I'll continue to do it for another number of years. So I've been called a fanatic, but hey, I'll wear that badge gladly, because if there's a race going on, I'm all in. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Paul Fanner. As a previous recipient of the Sport Car Club of America's Woolf Barnato Award, it is my genuine pleasure to introduce the 2025 inductee. The Woolf Barnato Award is one of the SCCA's most meaningful honors because it recognizes something deeper than success or visibility. It celebrates those who understand the heart of our club, why our members show up early, stay late, and keep coming back year after year. It honors people whose influence strengthens not just programs, but people. Bruce Foss is one of those rare individuals. I've had the good fortune to know Bruce throughout his journey in the SCCA. The journey happens to align almost perfectly with the period my company was publishing Sports Car magazine for the club. During those years, we didn't just report on racing, we chronicled the growth of the SCCA itself. And throughout this period was the emergence of Hoosier Tire as a foundational partner in the club's success. Bruce was at the center of that evolution. From the earliest days of Hoosier's involvement in sports car racing, Bruce understood that the SCCA wasn't just a sanctioning body. It was a community. He didn't approach racers as customers. He approached them as fellow enthusiasts. He listened, he learned, and he genuinely cared about their experience, whether they were racing wheel to wheel on a road course or chasing tenths on an autocross course. That fun, kind spirit is one of Bruce's defining traits. He understands why SCCA members are so deeply passionate about motorsport, not just for the competition, but for the friendships, the shared challenges, and the joy that comes from doing something hard with people you respect. Through his leadership at Hoosier Tire, Bruce helped bring long-term relationships that supported club racing and solo competitors across the country. Those efforts didn't just improve competition, they helped members race more often and stay engaged longer and feel supported by a partner who truly understood them. Bruce's impact has been recognized many times, including his inclusion in the SCCA Hall of Fame class of 2024, and through his role with the Road Racing Drivers Club, where he continues to give back by helping recognize excellence and character in our great sport. But what matters most isn't Bruce's list of honors. What matters is that Bruce Foss made people feel seen, valued, and welcomed in the sport we all love. He helped shape an era of growth and stability for the SCCA, and he did it with humility, humor, and unwavering belief in the people who make this club what it is. That is exactly what the Woolf Barnato Award represents. It is my honor to introduce the newest recipient of the Woolf Barnato Award, Bruce Foss.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to tell you that I'm extremely honored and humbled to be selected as a 2026 Woolf Barnato Award recipient. It's an award of honor. I can't say enough about SCCA selecting me for this honor. And, it's all due to the passion I applied to my career that gleaned success and recognition for the Hoosier brand. Met a lot of people along the way. It's an extremely cool industry where business relationships usually turn into friendships and long-term friendships. And I'm just grateful for all the SCCA people and racing competitors that I've met, people that are suppliers in other parts of the industry. The list goes on and on. That it's like a big family, and to be presented with this award is just truly, truly an honor, a highlight in my career for sure.
On behalf of the SCCA Board of Directors, SCCA staff, and SCCA membership at large, I want to congratulate each of our award winners tonight. Our Hall of Fame inductees, George Bovis, John Doonan, Don Knowles, Frank Schulteis, Jerry Winarka, our Member of Excellence winner, Leon Drake, and of course, Bruce Foss, this year's Woolf Barnato Award winner. All have contributed greatly to this club, all helped lay the foundation we stand on today, and we're certainly blessed to have them as vital members of the Sports Car Club of America. Last night at the annual meeting and in the Road Racing Awards event itself, also in the 2026 convention opening provided by Hall of Famer Lynn St. James, we heard a lot about the concept of leveling up. And in the general session earlier today, we talked about this to enhance our skills and programs so that they meet the complex challenges of serving motorsports enthusiasts in 2026 and beyond. For the SCCA's continued growth, we all play a role in expanding the SCCA experience to lower barriers of access, invite participation, and foster engagement. I want to thank all of tonight's award winners for all that they've done to help the club level up in so many ways, and for actively promoting the SCCA as the gateway to motorsports in the United States. We're a better club because of folks like you, and we're beyond grateful for your dedication and your leadership. In closing, and to each of you watching tonight, thank you for your continued commitment to the SCCA. Across 2026, let's all commit to being intentional about how we show up as the leaders we're called to be, and by inviting just one newbie to our events while providing them with the best SCCA experience possible. Team, I look forward to seeing you at the upcoming division meetings and working with you at an SCCA event in the very near future. Good night, God bless, and Godspeed from Studio SCCA. Night, everybody.